we're starting to get into the heart of the front headlock system now. From a kneeling situation, we've identified one of the keynote elements of our front headlock system, the high wrist position. We've seen that when our wrist goes from the traditional chin strap grip into the high wrist, you immediately create double closure and a massive threat of strangulation right from the start of your control in the front headlock position. Now, there's something you really need to understand about this high wrist position. Really, there's only one way for you to get it, and that's a movement which I often refer to as the centerline shift. What is a centerline shift? Well, for a right-handed front headlock, most of the time, if I want to control my opponent, I want to keep my head on his right-hand side. So, for example, if you look at a basic front headlock, I have a right-handed front headlock here. You'll see that my head is on my training partner's right-hand side, regardless of whether my hand is inside or outside. Sometimes you'll see this exaggerated, where the head goes inside the hole, etc., etc. But whenever I go to control my opponent, most of the time, a right-handed front headlock, my head will be on his right-hand side. Now, if I have my head on his right-hand side, I cannot achieve the high wrist position. So if my head stays here next to my training partner's right shoulder, it's almost impossible for me to get a successful high wrist position. What is required is that my head move across his center line and shift to the other side. Only then can I get my knuckles up above his clavicles into a true high wrist position. We're going to demonstrate this from a variety of angles. When I perform the high wrist position, you should be able to see the knuckles of my hand, the first knuckles. Okay? So when I have a classic front headlock, you can clearly see that my head is on my training partner's right-hand side. When I perform a centerline shift and my head goes across the center line to the other side, you can clearly see the first knuckles of my hand. Once my hand goes into that high wrist position, there are a wide variety of very, very powerful guillotine attacks that I can use, but they all rely on this idea of a centerline shift where my head goes from my opponent's right shoulder across to the left shoulder. Once the centerline shift occurs, then my hand can follow the head and go into the high wrist position. The evidence of the high wrist is simple. Can you see the first knuckles of my hand? If the answer is yes, I've got a high wrist. If you cannot see those first knuckles, no, not high enough. Okay, you're working from a low wrist. So once again, in a centerline shift, my head starts on Placido's right-hand side, and then as my head shifts, we get the high wrist position. And from here, so many ways for us to go on the attack that we'll soon be looking at.